I love this part of Envigado where I am right now. It's called La Magnolia. It's just to the north of the more central part of Envigado, just before we get to Zúñiga and La Frontera. But I wouldn't want to live here long term, and I'm going to tell you why in a second. But firstly, I really love this neighborhood. It's probably my favorite part of Envigado. Super authentic. You can see here is kind of these small little streets with a mixture of old architecture, kind of new buildings. It has a really authentic Colombian vibe. You don't really see that many tourists here. As I'm walking around right now, I'll be getting a few odd looks from locals because gringos don't normally come here because there's not that many gringo-y type things to do. But there are loads of nice cafes, restaurants, places to walk. They have little outdoor gyms everywhere, which I'm just going to show you just now. And generally, it is just a nice place to be. Look, there's a new little cafe here. Haven't seen this place before, but it seems really nice. And there's a really nice little outdoor gym here as well. Let me show you. So they have these really great outdoor gyms here in this part of Envigado. Well, all over Envigado, to be honest. But look, got pull-up bars, different handles. You can get a training session in here. And yeah, generally speaking, it is just a really nice part of Envigado. I have stayed here for a while as well. Christmas a couple of years ago, I was staying here for 2 or 3 weeks and it was awesome. There were people cooking sancocho in the street. There were kind of parties during the day and during the night. Everyone was super happy, super authentic, loads of Colombian culture, lots of trees as well. There are basically these kind of verges in between each part of the street where there's kind of like traffic going one way, traffic going the other way. Makes it super nice and green. Buenos días. Buenas tardes. And also, it's super flat as well. There is a little bit of a hill depending on which direction you go in because it's kind of like a grid layout, La Magnolia. But most of all, it's pretty walkable. You can kind of get your way around. And there's loads of little cafes, nooks, crannies, restaurants, shops, things to do, things to buy, things to organize, etc. Like if you need to do some printing, there's loads of printing shops. Basically, it's just a really well kind of facilitated area. But yes, I would not want to live here long term and I wouldn't buy a property here. So the main reason is because of everything I've just mentioned, because there's lots going on, because there's lots of cafes, because it's a residential area, because all of these buildings are kind of like jammed to and fro. There's not any space in between them, meaning a lot of people live in this area. It's busy. There's always a moto going by. There's always a bus going by. If you lived in La Magnolia, you would never get any peace and quiet, none whatsoever. So let's say you were living here, you had a really lovely apartment with a little balcony and a nice view with nice trees and everything. You wouldn't be able to sit and enjoy your little cafecito at 11 a.m. sat on your balcony because it would just be ruined by a motor going by. There's bus routes everywhere as well. You get this classic South American street vendors shouting for like aguacates, mazamorra, stuff like that. So basically all of the positives of La Magnolia, that is busy, vibey stuff going on, cafe culture, lots of nice restaurants. They're the same reason why I would not live here because it's just too busy, it's too bustly. I recently stayed here in La Magnolia for a second time when my mum came to visit me from the UK. We booked an Airbnb on one of these corners here. And as you can imagine, it was non-stop motors. But the worst thing were the buses. So depending on what street you are in La Magnolia, if you are on a street with a bus route on, and let's say you're on a corner, so there are buses not going along your street technically, but let's say the street next door because you're on a corner. Let's say there's a bus route there from 5 a.m. until late at night. I think it's maybe 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. You will hear the swoosh, the loud swoosh, by the way, of buses going by every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes. And it can really ruin the enjoyment of your home because let's say you don't want to wake up at 5 a.m. Let's say you want to wake up at 6 a.m. or even 7 a.m. Or maybe on a weekend. Or let's say you want to go to bed early. Maybe you're not feeling that well. You want to go to bed at 9 o'clock. If you have these buses swooshing past your bedroom window every 10 minutes, every half an hour, whatever it may be, and they are loud, by the way. These buses are old. They're not electric. They're diesel. They pump out disgusting fumes. You're not going to be able to get any peace and quiet in your property if you were to live in La Magnolia, even though during the day it's great, you can do lots of stuff. And look, some of you watching this will be Colombian, you'll be from here and you'll be used to it because if you grow up in this kind of environment, if you are from Latin America and you've grown up in a Latin American city, you are just accustomed, you are just used to the noise. The buses are normal for you. The constant motors are normal for you. And so your brain will do a good job at kind of like normalizing that sound, blocking it out, etc. But if you are not from a Latin American country, you haven't grown up here, you're not accustomed to all of this noise, it will be tough for you. This is a classic case. Look, this happens in every city, right? But because there are so many buildings here, because they're relatively old, because people are always updating their properties, renovating, they're always doing work. So look, there's like a guy doing some like work to this building here. But guys, as you can see, Most of these are going to be apartments, right? They're not going to be houses. And so if you can just think about how many people live on this street alone, just on one side, then we have the whole other side as well. And this is just one street. As I said earlier, it's kind of like a grid system. So there are lots, thousands of apartments and families and people living in La Magnolia. That's why it's so vibey. But because of that, at least someone is always going to be doing building work. At least someone in one of those flats has a motor. Maybe per flat, there's 2 motors because they have 2 working parents and they both need to go to work in separate directions. So yeah, exactly what I said. Like the thing that makes La Magnolia so great, so vibey, so Colombian, people everywhere hanging out, having a little cafecito on the corner, a little cervecita. This is also the thing that makes it, I would say, almost unlivable for foreigners and expats, because unless you are used to the noise, unless you want those buses swooshing past your window at 5 a.m. like clockwork every single day, apart from maybe festival days or Sundays, it's not going to be livable for you. Now, my Spanish teacher told me that she had a student who bought a property, not exactly in this area, actually in La Frontera where I live. He bought the property for the visa. He didn't really do too much due diligence before he bought the property, and it ended up being noisy. He could hear the traffic from his bedroom window. He couldn't sleep. It was terrible. And so he had to end up selling that property that he bought at a loss just because he wanted to buy somewhere where he could actually sleep, where he wasn't disturbed by the traffic all the time. And I think from memory, he lost around 50 million pesos in that deal. He bought it for 600 and something and had to sell it for 600 and something. So this is why the number one thing that I made sure when I was looking at properties, when I bought my property here in Colombia, is that it was relative peace and quiet. Obviously, you're not going to be able to get somewhere completely silent, which is still relatively close and central and where you can walk everywhere. That being said, you can do lots of things to mitigate how noisy your apartment is. And so living in La Magnolia, living one of these lovely little terraces here might be super cool, super vibey. I mean, I'm sure lots of Colombians love living here because they're accustomed to the noise. But just look at it, guys. Look how lovely this is. Look. There, just how beautiful it is, right? Really love this neighborhood, but you know, you're sat up there, you're trying to enjoy a little cafecito at 10 a.m. in the morning, and all you can hear are the motos going by, and they drive fast in Colombia for some reason. Colombians are very kind of reserved and slow and polite when they're not in a vehicle, but the moment they get into a vehicle, they speed, they're beeping their horn, they're accelerating, they're doing whatever. So yeah, I really think that despite me absolutely loving this area to just come and hang out in, go for a coffee, go to a little restaurant, have a little menu del dia, for a long-term living option, or for me to buy a property here or somewhere to live, it's definitely a no-go because of the noise, right? And you don't want to make the same mistake as the student of my Spanish teacher, whereby you buy a property, you love it, you realize it's on a bus route, you have from 5 a.m. till 10 p.m. every single day listening to the swoosh of buses. You don't really fancy getting used to that noise, because why would you? And you end up having to maybe sell your property or move out or rent it out or something to get away from the noise. So don't make that same mistake. Luckily, I managed to learn that mistake from someone else and they paid the price for it. Sucks for them, but good for me. But yeah, this is La Magnolia in Envigado. Absolutely buzzing, cool neighborhood, somewhere to visit and check out. But if you want to live here, I would suggest don't, unless you are happy with that noise and you don't mind it. So I'll catch you guys in the next video. Hope you found this helpful.